Welcome back to the Relentless Minds podcast. I am your host, Lori Jimenez. I created this platform with a sole mission, and that is to inspire people of all backgrounds to create the change they wish to see in their lives and in the world by sharing the examples of those who are. As a listener, you will hear the stories of ordinary men and women with extraordinary stories of overcoming adversities in order to experience the life they dream of. All of these individuals share a common interest. They desire a change for the better, and they are in a relentless pursuit to create that for themselves. If you're looking for inspiration to overcome challenges in your own life to create a life that you desire to have, then you have come to the right place. You see, the truth is, people everywhere are fighting for what they believe in, and together, with relentless action and mental strength, I have no doubt that we can fulfill that dream. Welcome back to the Relentless Minds podcast. This is your host, Lori Jimenez. On today's episode, I interview Marianne Duquette Cuozzo on her personal experience battling cancer not once, but 3 times, as she was diagnosed twice with Hodgkin's lymphoma, once in 1994 and then again in 1997, and then she was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2014. She talks about her journey as she faced each diagnosis and series of treatments head-on, hearing the news that she may never be able to have children and eventually having to undergo a double masectomy without reconstruction due to multiple infections. This was one of the hardest things Marianne has had to do in her life. She shares with us the emotional and mental pain she struggled with as she continuously worked to love herself and her new body image after the effects of cancer. Most incredibly, Marianne shares her journey and emotions through her artwork, which she posts on her media platforms to let other women know that they are not alone. Marianne is an artist, mother, cancer advocate, and cancer survivor. She aspires to empower women through her artwork and is currently writing a book, which she will further use to share her journey and strength. Let's begin the conversation. Welcome, Marianne, to the Relentless Minds podcast. I'm so happy that we were able to make this happen.
Me too. This is an awesome experience and opportunity. Thank you, Lori.
Absolutely. So, Marianne, you are an incredible artist, mother, 3 times cancer survivor, and a cancer research advocate. Really looking forward to diving into this inspirational conversation with you regarding your experience with cancer and also your beautiful artwork. But first, how have you been holding up during this quarantine?
Absolutely, we're all affected.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that I'm not in a so tightly knit area. I'm not in an apartment. I'm in a house so that I have outside to go to, and I can walk down the streets and such. For me, I work at a school part-time, and I'm having this opportunity to really do a lot of work for myself, which has been really helpful. Often in my life, I have to find those genuinely good parts of bad situations, and I'm doing that now.
You're doing that now, and you're keeping yourself healthy, hopefully mentally, emotionally, physically.
Yes.
What have been some things that you've been doing that you feel have been helping you?
I'm not going out, obviously, but I do take a 2-mile walk every day. That's something that's clearing my mind. And it also, I guess it's a feeling of like, I'm just making sure I stay healthy by taking those walks, because it's mental and physical at that moment. And it's, therapeutic. I'm able to look around and see this beautiful spring day and the strangeness that's behind it all. It's very surreal. And do a lot of praying as I'm walking and hoping everyone's doing okay. And because I'm very fortunate. My son is away at school, which is my most fearful thing. He's at school. He's at a house away at school. I'm not with him, so it's hard. But we talk every day, and he's doing fine. But not having him around is a little bit, it's tough. It's tough because you worry.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you guys are in a good place, that you're taking care of yourself mentally by going out walking. And I think it's so important because prayer and just being present in that moment and just being thankful for what we do have, right? And what is still available for us to appreciate. Like fresh air and beautiful weather and time with your family, time and for you to work on your artwork, which is, I know, super, 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 super powerful.
It's a daily thing for me. It has to be. I have to. It's just something I do that's very cathartic, and sometimes it's just, the physical aspect of it, just doing physical. And as an artist, it's also just, you feel the paint, or you feel I draw with Sharpies, which is very strange right now. And I love the line. It's so black on white. It's so crisp. And there's something about that. And then I kind of muffle it up and do something else with it, which I just love, that what merges from that. So it becomes very physically enjoyable, and then it becomes beautiful, and then it becomes, it hits a lot of senses, it gets like that. So, and then I know that there's a message I'm sending in my artwork, whether it's being whimsical or inspiring, or it's something about my body. And then I share it, which is so silly to say. And then I get all these people loving it, and it hits them and it resonates. And that's like poetic. It's just perfect. It's just I'm very fortunate to have that.
It's healing all around.
Yeah.
It's within you and
Yeah.
others that look at your artwork. And
100% within me. I mean, I don't mean I'm selfishly doing this. I'm not doing this, but it's helping, many. So,
but it's great because you put it out there. You definitely put it out there, and I think it made more of an impact than you even realized it would.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into that too. Your artwork plays a big part into this conversation that we're going to have today. Moving back a little bit regarding your journey and what amazed me incredibly about you, you've been diagnosed with cancer not once, but 3 times during your life.
Yeah.
And could you tell us then about your personal experience with cancer and how you managed to face those battles every time?
It's so interesting because I was young. I was 28, turned 29, I should say. And I was just married, and I didn't have any idea. I had just started a career of my own, and I was just out there, just thrown out there doing all these exciting things, and really excited about starting this life. And I always have been like a very positive person. And then all of a sudden one day I just, I was doing a job. I was a decorative painter. So I did a lot of houses. And at this moment I was doing these houses, and I was painting a ceiling. So the ceiling was to be like clouds and skies, and it was beautiful, and this really elegant house. And I'd come home and I just was exhausted. And I was like, okay, my neck was hurting, my back was hurting. And I just was, it has to be because, painting a ceiling, I'm up and down scaffolding. And I needed a back rub, neck rub. So my husband was like, all right, so you just rub my neck. And then he rubbed my clavicle, and he noticed a lump. And the lump was, he said it was so obvious to him. He's like, you never saw this? I was like, I never saw it. And the lump happened to be leaning on a nerve. So I ended up going to a chiropractor, just thinking, no, it's just a chiropractic. Went to the chiropractor, and it turned out that she took an x-ray of it. And she just said to me, she goes, yeah, it's not chiropractic. I can't tell you what it is, what I see, but I know someone that you should go to. So I went to an infectious disease doctor within the next day, and he took tons of blood. And then within 3 days, I'm diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I didn't know what the hell that was. And it was so weird because at the time, we're talking 94, 1994, and there was no social media. It was dial-up. We didn't have a computer. We had dial-up. I went to the library to get books to figure out what this was. And my whole life became doctors. And it was so hard because there was nobody that I knew. I mean, I only knew older people who had grandkids who had prostate or breast cancer. I didn't know anybody who was young. I didn't want anyone to know about it. And it was like, I was very private about it because I felt so different than everybody about it. And when I finally went to a doctor, and the doctor was telling me that I was going to have this, what they did back then is I would have to have a splenectomy. They remove with Hodgkin's, what they stage you kind of from top to bottom because of your lymph nodes. You have 700 lymph nodes in your body, and they stage you according. So what they did back then in 94 was they removed your spleen, so that if they knew that the cancer was not in your spleen, they would stage you stage 3 up. So if it was beyond your spleen, it was stage 4. Gotcha. They also remove it prophylactically so that the cancer can't get into it, correct? Because the lymph system is almost like a chain with beads on it. So I was lucky it was not in my spleen, and they tested other lymph nodes around it. It wasn't. So it was stage 2B. And at that time, what they did is they gave you radiation. And unfortunately, it was a mantle radiation, which is your chest, and it's also your pelvic area. And it was 48 radiations therapy, which is crazy medieval.
Crazy amount.
Back then, that's what they did back then. And that's how they did. That was the protocol. I finished that. It was very difficult because the doctor that I was with was pretty much telling me that, and I remember this clearly, is hardest thing that I ever really went through I was with my mother, and the doctor said, you're going to have to do this, this, and this. And the chances of you having a child is none. And I remember sitting in the car with my mom, just crying and knowing that I had to go home and tell my husband, not only do we have cancer to deal with, we can't have children. And that was the hardest thing. When I look back, the hardest thing. And he was in great big denial, but he also his anger was, no, you do not have this. This is impossible. Unfortunately, he was thrusted into this pretty much, so we went forward and we had to take care of it. I had the splenectomy, which was one of the hardest surgeries because they basically take all your intestines out and they put it out on the side and they take care of you and then they put it back in and you got to stay in the hospital for a couple of days. And it was about a week until I was able to get out. And it was a really physically horrible surgery in the sense that it's a 10-inch scar from my chest, my breastbone, all the way down to my pubic bone. And it was just 28 staples. And I use it often in my art because it was so unbelievably Frankenstein-esque. But I could hide it and I dealt with that and, I moved on. Then it was, I'd have CAT scans and PET scans and MRIs and all this for months and months afterwards. And slowly my world got back and I was able to start doing stuff again. And I started my running again, which was what I did. And what I did discover that I did have was the mass itself that they were radiating was about a grapefruit size. And it was between my heart and my lungs. So now we're going to 1997. And I had a CAT scan and they always saw something. And they always just said, oh, it's just scar tissue from the radiation. Mm-hmm. And then in 97, I had one doctor just say to me, he's like, I'm not loving the fact that the scar tissue is still there. And I really like to go in there and just check it out. So in 97, I had a surgery that was very, they had to actually pry because I'm looking at my old notes for different things that I'm doing right now and just get inspired. And they had to pry my ribs open in my chest to get to this area. And they biopsied it, discovered it was cancer. At that point, they said that you have to have chemotherapy. And that was in 97 and I was 32. And it was just like, I got to do this shit again. and
were you still going through treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma?
This was Hodgkin's lymphoma. This was still Hodgkin's. So what it was that what they found in the biopsy with the scar tissue it wasn't scar tissue. It was actually still the cancer. It never went away. So here I am for how many months that I still had it, years I'm talking, that I still had this, the cancer. And, I look at it, hindsight, yes, I was lucky that they found it, that I let them do this biopsy because I could have just said, no. From there, I had to have chemo and that was 32. And the chemo at the time was ABVD, which is adriamycin, bleomycin, viafycin, doxam, whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. But the adriamycin in it was one of the toughest chemos there are. It's called the Red Devil because it just knocks you out. And I got so sick and I was very sick and you dealt with it. And I want to say 12 to 16 rounds of that. And then this team of doctors were just like, go ahead, you're going to be good. And they were like, after 2 years, 3 years, they were like, go have a kid. So I was able to have my son. So It was a very big blessing. So in 2000, I had Leonardo. So.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. But you were fighting this from 1994 till 2000. Was it 2000 that it ended? And then you were able to
say 98. We 98, 90. I was done with everything. And then I got to go ahead to try to have a child and we succeeded. And my life started over in the most beautiful way. And the biggest blessing he is. I didn't have fear at that time, because I was now a mother and I had to take care of this person. So it was like my whole world became this person. So I had to take care of myself. I also definitely did stuff that I lived life at that point. I just definitely felt like I shifted gears and I started doing things out of my comfort zone. I just, took jobs that I was more exciting and did things that were more exciting and just, challenged myself a little bit more, and then as Leo grew older, it was the importance of making this kid be proud of his mom, but unfortunately in 2014, I ended up going to gyno appointment and had a mammo and I had noticed the day before, and actually it's funny, it's the day before his birthday, Leo's birthday, and I felt like a cord in my breast. It felt like a guitar string, just a cord, and it was such a strange sensation. And I even had a friend feel it because she had breast cancer herself, and she was like, no, that's nothing. And then I went to the doctor, and he was like, it's most likely calcification because I breastfed Leonardo for a long time. It's probably calcification from breastfeeding, and my gyno was just like, at first he was unimpressed. And then all of a sudden he was just like, well, because of your history, let's just get it checked out. And his team just got me like a mammo and sono that day. And I went, and within an hour of a mammo and a sono, I had a core biopsy because they saw something and they This woman, this beautiful doctor came in, and she just said, I can't believe I have to tell you this, but we found cancer. And I'm like, I just was going in for a mammo, like that was it. Like I was just getting a gyno appointment. Like what the hell that I have to, and they said, because it wasn't the cord, it was something behind the cord. It was a calcification, but behind that was a lump. And she says, yeah. So I had to go back to my team of doctors. We caught it early. It was stage 3 because I had it in my lymph nodes as well. I ended up having a double mastectomy. And when they have a double mastectomy, they also go for your lymph nodes to see margins, to see how far the lymph went out. So I had 20 lymph nodes taken out of my armpit, and then they found several that were cancerous. That's where the lymphedema came in from that. And then I had a double mastectomy. And unfortunately, with the double mastectomy, I had implants put in. And the implants, unfortunately, became infected. I got septic breasts. It was awful. So I had 6 infections that I ended up having to have these implants removed. Apparently, what happened was the breast cancer came from the radiation I had from when I was younger. So it was caused by mantle radiation. Yeah.
From the radiation you received 20 years prior, you were getting
Yes.
breast cancer.
Yep. And unfortunately, they didn't know back then what it would be. Radiation now is so different. It's so pinpoint. Back then, they really, really, especially for Hodgkins, they really had to take a whole lot of area to radiate. I mean, I did have a lead bib that they made and all that stuff, but what ended up happening is that the doctor that I went to, it's interesting to go back to this, to mention this too, is I had several doctors I saw, and I was not really impressed with their diagnosis, or they kept on saying, oh yeah, we heard about the research, that we read a research about how radiation from Hodgkins can cause breast cancer later on. They all said they heard about it. I was not totally impressed with that answer. And I ended up, one of my good friends is a PA at Sloan Kettering in New York City. And she says, no, you're going to my doctor that I work with. And you're going to my breast surgeon that, I work with daily. And I got to go see Dr. Hirt in Sloan Kettering. She sat me down. She goes, I wrote that research. The woman who wrote it. So I was like, you got it. You got me. So she was just like, right. Oh yeah, I wrote that. And she showed me actually in a picture, and I have the picture still, of how the lead bib that they put on you, that how the cancer just kind of forms around the perimeter of the bib, and unbeknownst, they don't know why, but they do know that the radiation is the reason.
Your story is absolutely wow. It's just because,
well, it's not over. After that happened, and I had a double mastectomy, and I had the implants put in, and happily having these implants, I enjoyed them. They're beautiful. They're perfect. They unfortunately went septic on me because of the fact that the skin was so radiated, and the implant was fake, that bacteria went in between, and it festered into the implant. They couldn't get rid of it. I mean, so I was at weeks at a time. I was in the hospital with IVs and just trying to get me bring down these 103 fevers. And it was a very scary time because they couldn't get it to go away. And it just was red, hot, painful. And, there were times that I was very worried. I remember sleeping and just, I couldn't believe how the nurses were all on top of me for every minute. Like, what's going on? Like, what is going on? And I was so afraid at this one moment at the hospital that this was it, because it was so bad. And I didn't really talk about that much to anybody, because I wrote it down, and I was like, wow, I really was scared that day. And so finally what ended up happening, I just said, we all decided to get them out. So I took the one out, and I lived life with just one implant in a flat chest, flat side. So it was very lopsided, and I wasn't happy with that. So then I ended up having the other implant removed, and now I live flat. And that's a whole nother journey. It's a big time journey.
And I've seen that a lot reflected in your work, in your artwork as well. I think that's an important conversation to have, because like you were even telling me before the interview that your surgeon was talking about how there are health benefits. It's actually a good option to go flat.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about your journey, like going through. I mean, this is years and years and years, and you're trying to have your own personal life with your family. You're a mother, and just a regular lifestyle while you're battling cancer.
Yeah.
How did you mentally get through these moments? Like just kind of the years. What were you maybe telling yourself? What was going on in your head that kept you? Because I've seen throughout your work, it's like hope is a big thing for you,
Yeah.
And so how did that play, maybe that or other ways of thinking that really helped you to get by?
It's an ongoing thing, and there's really I think no clear cut answer to it. I wake up and you have good days and bad days. We all do. And I keep thinking in my head, there's a reason that this happened to me. And I have to do something with myself for that reason. Like, I have to live this life. I've been put in this place to survive over and over again. I better start getting out there and living it. I'm not going to say I want to help people. That's not my answer, because that doesn't sound true to myself. But I want to show women, I did this. You could do this. Like, we could do this. You know what I mean? You're not alone. We got this. And I constantly say this to myself, there's courage inside you never knew you had. And you go with that. And I'm telling you, when I go for my walks, I just, I'll be walking, schlumping. And all of a sudden I'm like, damn it, I got courage. Like, stand up, proud, tall, and just walk with pride and embrace this. It's beautiful. And yes, we have good days and bad days, but like, the good is so good. Good is so good.
Would you say then that going through your experiences, it was more of like, having to remind yourself, having to tell yourself these positive, choosing to put positivity and empowerment
100%,
into your mind?
100%, 100%. And I know that has helped me. I know that my positive attitude has helped me, and it helps people around me. And maybe I do it too, to make sure people, I grew up with very, very happy parents. My mother was, well, I learned from my mother. My mother had a lot of depression, but she also knew how to like hide it and have this great laugh and make everyone feel good around her. But behind her, she was sad. And I know that I have that, and my family has that, and we all have that. But I think that I know that my positivity just is stronger than my depression. I can convince myself out of anything to feel good. You know what I mean? You really can get yourself out of a bad way if you just think about good things. And that's so important. It's so important. And I think that has made people do things in the greatest scheme of things in the world, because they have a positive attitude. And I think people who have a negative attitude, I mean, it's so obvious, but they bring such negativity towards them. It just weighs you down. Visually, it's so, positivity is light and negativity is dark. Where do you want to go? You want to go to the dark? You want to go to the light? You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's
You
right.
know?
And I think it's super interesting that you mentioned as well that you're still experiencing your dark side of things sometimes, your bad days, right? The
Yeah.
moments of depression, but you choose positivity. And that's a powerful statement to make, because in your artwork as well, I've seen you say, "What face are you wearing today?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's super powerful, because I think that when you do see people and you see them with this smile on their face, it doesn't mean they're not experiencing pain inside. But
Absolutely not. Yeah.
at that moment, maybe they're choosing that positivity. They want to be surrounded by that positivity. They want to embrace that positivity, that happiness, even though they are experiencing a bad time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's for me, I mean, that means a lot, because a lot of people, I feel like that, oh, they're not experiencing anything. They look so happy, but that's not
Yeah.
the reality.
Yeah. Well, that's our social media for you. I mean, we all see
Yeah.
everyone so happy and beautiful
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And the reality is, and I love when people do show themselves in a great way, and then they say, this is really the way I feel. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mm.
love when they do that, because it is helpful. And especially these people who have tons of followers, and people are looking towards them. And I do like when people physically show themselves at, not in a bad way, but,
Mhm.
and to feel sorry for them, but just to see the reality of how people are. I mean, we do not know what people feel. And I'm in a community of breast cancer community right now, and having been with these women, and I could tell that ones that are mad at the world and the ones that are like embracing the world, and the ones that are mad at the world, I have to stay away from, because it's not good for me. But at the same time, you want to help, and you're empathetic, and you want to be there for them. But you could definitely tell that the people I have surrounding me are the ones that are positive,
Mhm.
because we draw to each other. It's just the way
Exactly.
it is, and it's important to draw that good side for
Mhm.
healthy reasons. It's just healthy reasons. I mean,
It's for yourself, really. It's about,
yeah,
I feel like it's a disservice personally. It's like, you already have all of these things that are happening to you. Why do bad things to yourself?
yeah.
If
And why
anything,
push people away? And don't
yeah,
push people away if, and that's what you do, because I don't think that when people are so negative, and I'm
that's
not
right.
saying you have to have a smile on your face all the time. I mean, God, that's not the way
Mhm.
it is. It's certainly not the way I am. A, I have a lot of depression a lot of times. I could see it, and I kind of like, okay, here we're going. And my art has been such a saving grace to me, because of the fact that when that does happen, I do let it out in my art, or I let it out. I journal a lot
Mm.
too. I journal every day. So the journaling helps too. And I know that sounds maybe hokey, whatever, but it really
Not at
does
all.
help. I mean, I'm in therapy now too, which was something I should have done a long, long time ago. And I really regret that I didn't start it a long time ago, because now I'm discovering so many things. And it's been such a great experience, because I had been harboring anger at certain things that I was trying to hide or prevent. A lot of it was I hid a lot of my pain from my parents and my family because I didn't want them to see that. And they knew. I mean, they knew, they saw, but I hid a lot. And I ended up being angry that I was hiding it from them, because they would have been able to handle it. They're there for me. We're all there for each other. But I put it in my artwork instead, or I wrote, and I tried not to let my son see me unhappy. And that's hard, because at the same time, he was just like, Mom, what you're doing is your mission with this. You have a mission. You have to be an advocate because you have a purpose. Very, very
Yeah.
powerful.
Wow. Smart boy.
Smart boy.
Absolutely. And let's talk about your artwork, because your artwork is so inspirational. It is helping a lot of people, and more importantly, it is helping you.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to what you're doing with your artwork and how you've used that to express your emotions and your journey, how have you felt the therapeutic benefits for yourself? Like, what is it about drawing that helps you to express yourself, to relieve pain, to feel better?
I've always had artwork in my life. My parents were artists. They met in art school. My brothers and sister are artists, and they married artists. And my father has a studio in his house and could give us supplies. I mean, so it was a daily thing of whatever type of artwork we went into, because we all had to make a living, so we all ended up using our artwork as, I was a decorative painter. So I did pretty things. And when I first got diagnosed at 29, my artwork was pretty. And that's the only way I could tell it. I sold it. It was pretty. And then I would go into my studio and I would just start doing these things, which I never did before. I had huge newsprint, taped it to the wall, and took messy, dark charcoal and just went on it, like just angry art. And I smeared, and it was all over my hands and my face. And I was just throwing them out of my body. And it was thrilling. And it was never meant for anyone to see. There was no social media, so I wasn't showing these things. It was all rolled up and put under the couch. Tons of them. I did them tons. And I remember reading my journal recently, because I'm going through something. I'm doing a project, and I'm reading this, how I couldn't believe how I couldn't wait to get home from the doctor or from therapy or whatever I was doing, to go to the room and to create these art pieces that nobody was meant to see. And it was just my therapy at the time. And then after a while, then when my second diagnosis, my second recurrence, or whatever you want to call it, I started doing these really pensive drawings of these women's faces. It was in my room again, and I would just do these very large facial expressions, which was really interesting, like why I chose this. And they were not smiling faces, but they were just faces. And you see a lot of them. And one of that one with which face you're wearing are actually two separate drawings that I did back then. And just recently cut them out and put them together, and it fit magically. And that's what's happening now to my artwork, which is just something completely, I'm taking old art and making it into a new light, I'm calling it, where it physically is taking my old artwork, cutting it up, and putting it together throughout the years. And it's just, it's magic.
What's
magic.
The significance of that? Yeah, that's incredible. I saw that.
Yeah, I think it's just that I just, old art, new light. That's how I have to look at it. Like I'm looking at it like my life this is the new light in me. And I can't even, like, when it happened, I did these two women, I cut them out, and it was the weirdest thing. Like I stood there, and I wish I could physically show you. It's like, I just went ka-ching to they just went click, and that one was holding the other. And it was like, that was meant to be. One of my favorite drawings of all time that I've done, and very proud of it. My images now, what I did with the breast cancer, I use symbols of birds were my breasts. And the bird cages I use a lot are my sexuality. And sometimes my sexuality, the door of the bird cage is open because my sexuality is open. And sometimes it's closed. Sometimes the bird's in the bird cage. Sometimes it's outside the bird cage. And it just became the symbol for me, and it was useful. And then I had a string with a heart on it, which was my hope. It's my ever-present hope in my artwork. I haven't been using that as much anymore because I didn't want it to be cliche. I was kind of getting away from that little bit of a cliche, and I didn't want it to be too. It was very whimsical, but it was really real. So I didn't want to make it too light of it. So some of the artwork now is less of that whimsical stuff, but it's still, the birds are present in a lot of these drawings. The drawings I'm doing now are a lot more about my body image and
Yes.
how hard it is. And there are women that are very, very, they embrace their flatness in the most, I wish I could be like them. They chose it. I wanted the breast implants. So being flat was really hard, but I'm with these great women that I'm so proud of, that this flat community that are so magnificent and so proud of themselves, and they're advocates, and I'm in their advocate world, and I've done lots of advocacy being flat, and to make choice of being flat if you want to, or have that opportunity to be, say to the doctor, I do not want these breast implants. And now, ironically, I don't know if I want to sidetrack to this yet because we're talking about my artwork, but it's a very important point of women now not being able to have reconstruction because of the COVID virus, that they have to wait. So a lot more women are going to go flat because they're going to have to wait, and they're going to decide, I don't really want to have implants, eventually. I don't want surgery. This is not so bad. So there's going to be a lot of women doing that right now because their reconstruction surgeries are being postponed to whenever. So a lot of these women that I'm working with are talking about this, that saying, being flat is a choice, a valid choice.
When it came to your journey and accepting your flatness, because you really are, you place yourself out there,
Yeah.
on your social media. And I think to many people it would have seemed like you've embraced it. What would you say has been that journey? Are you there at that point, or is it still
It's
ongoing?
it's half half. It's definitely half and half. I'm proud of it, because I'm proud of the community that is so proud of it. The community is very important, and they're these magnificent women that are so like, I'm flat and proud. It's just like, this is like, and they're trying to show other women to just embrace this beautiful body that you're not your breasts.
Yeah.
I unfortunately haven't gotten there yet because sexually it was very important to me, sensually and everything. It was, my breasts were part of my experience, and not having them, the experience is not the same. And it's hard because physically I'm not active, so it's kind of a double-edged sword, you know what I mean? So there's a side of me that wants to, yes, I'm out there socially in social media with my top off a lot and on TV and doing all these kinds of things. But I think when I look at it, I'm trying to look at myself being proud of I'm proud of myself like that. You know what I mean? Convincing myself. So it's not quite there
Gotcha.
yet.
You, though, do, and I want to talk about body image because I think a lot of women can identify with your journey and with the decision to go flat, or if they did go flat, processing that. What can you say about your journey in learning to love yourself and to love your image? And I know it's an ongoing thing, but what's important, because you have this positivity about you that a lot of people may be missing. And so, what's your journey looking like on your way to loving your image?
It's, I think, ongoing. It's going to
Yeah.
be ongoing. But I think, also, it's been ongoing for my whole life. I think we all have body dysmorphia. Like, everyone has issues with their body. So this is really what comes down to for me, is that unfortunately, when I have clothes on, I feel fine. Yeah, things fit weird or they feel better. It's one or the other. I wear a lot of scarves. That's my thing. I hide my flatness with that. But it's when you're not dressed. It's the hard part where you all of a sudden you're like, look at yourself and you go, huh, okay, I have no breasts. And okay, that's just what I have to deal with for the rest of my life. It's not like that's going to change, like it's not like I can lose weight and feel better about myself, or, oh, exercise, get rid of my thighs. It's like, no, 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 I can't just get breasts or nipples or sensation for that matter. Or, so it's an ongoing thing. Beauty is absolutely inside of us. But I mean, here I am in my house. I am not going out. I still put my lipstick on my eyelashes and, do my
That's
eyebrows and
right.
my hairs. I need to feel beautiful.
That's
That's what
right.
I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's just
Mhm.
what I do. I dress every day. I go, like I want to look
Mhm.
like I'm going out to New York City every day. That's the way I'm
Mhm.
trying to do it. And I think as I get older, I'm going to be better at this because I think I'm just going to, I'm older, I'm 55. When I'm 56, I just want to keep feeling good about myself. And yes, I have to say, when I did that fashion show and I walked down that runway,
Yes.
it was like my
You were
sassy
so
self.
bold.
That was my
You were
sassy
so
self.
bold. There was not a care in the world in your mind at that moment.
Exactly. And I have to say, these women have been all changed by that, that experience we had.
I love that. It's so important. I want to tell you from, in a way, like an outside perspective from the artwork that you do. You reflect and you express in your artwork the self-love, self-care, sexuality.
Yes, big
And
time.
when I was looking at your artwork, it did bring to mind sort of like the struggles mentally that a lot of women, when they're experiencing like the treatment before cancer or even afterwards,
Yeah.
the impacts that it has on their body,
Yeah.
right? And on their mind. Because you said everybody kind of experiences or deals with dysmorphia, right, of their body
Yeah.
without disease. Now,
Yes.
when you're impacted with something so hard to deal with, I started to think, wow, I want to tap into, I want to understand like how that is, right? Because I'm sure you sharing how it's been, a lot of women can resonate with that, but you still choosing then to share online, or even with yourself and be
Yeah.
real about
Yeah.
what you're going through and how hard it is for you to love yourself when it's hard, it is
Yeah.
hard, I'm sure,
Yes. Yes.
because you have this image of an ideal and then it's like,
It was
how can
taken
I
away.
how can I be
Yeah.
there? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So how has that been for you?
The thing that comes to mind first was, when I had the Hodgkins and I was younger and I still had my breasts. So I had cancer, but I didn't have body dysmorphia. Like I was not physically changed. Yes, I had a scar that was like, Frankenstein on my stomach, but I had clothes I could put over, cover that. You know what I mean? Sometimes I felt warrior like and I would be brave, but it was never a sexual aspect of me. Once I had the breast cancer, it became so different. This cancer it took something so major away from me. And it was such a different experience because it wasn't just cancer again. It was body image. It was my sexuality. It was my sensuality. And breasts do not define a woman. And women who do have reconstruction, I'm so happy for that. They were able to do that and it succeeded. And I have nothing against that. But it was not my choice to go flat. So the body image is super hard in the sense that it wasn't my choice. And every time I've met with women that have breast cancer, no other cancer but breast cancer, that's the concern, is that their body image has changed. Even if they have beautiful implants that succeeded and they're lovely, there's no sensation. And for a lot, there's no nipples. Or if there's nipples, they are like nowhere on their body and there's still no sensation. So they're just physically there. They don't look like themselves, but they're not even in the place that they were. And I just met with a group of women and it was just like we all talked about the same thing. And it was like there's no sensation. And yeah, they could look good in a shirt. You don't have to wear a bra, like all the fun things. But it's like, this is not a boob job. This is like total reminder that you had cancer. And that's a rough thing to go through life with because that's more than just a body image of let's go for a walk and I'll walk off the potato chips I just ate. You know what I mean? That's completely different.
And when it comes to, it looks like personally you're bringing this up a lot, the groups that you're meeting with and the women that you're able to speak with that can all share that common story, that common emotion.
Yeah.
How has that played a part in your healing?
What I love is that we all can talk about the same thing and be like, oh my God, it's like you too. And it's like, wow, you're not alone. It's like you're never going to be alone because you're going to have all these women to talk to about this stuff. And that's huge. And it's important. And it's important we talk about it. And I have friends who don't have cancer and I have a hard time talking about cancer with these friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I love them for everything they are,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't talk about it. I don't think they want me to like not talk about it. I don't think they are like, oh, she's going to talk about cancer again. They have to know it's my whole life. It's been my whole life. So it is going to be what I'm going to be talking about. And, some friends have said to me, just, maybe don't go with the cancer group. Don't do it so much. Maybe you'll feel better and you could think of other things. So can't. That's just the world I'm in. I want to share moments with these women that feel the same things because I leave that time with them and I'm going, I'm certainly not alone. A lot that comes out of this. And unfortunately it is. And it is about sex and it is about life after cancer, sex life after cancer. And these are women who have spouses who have been by their sides 100%, or there's women that don't even have significant others. They're just by themselves trying to date in New York City, and it is so hard because what do you say? It is a big concern. And that comes out with, I guess the way I'm suggesting it is in self-love and how I have to remind myself, I love myself first. I take care of myself first. And that's what I'm doing, so I'm really, really learning how to love myself. And that means self-love. And that means talking about sex after cancer, even if you're not with somebody, how you have to make yourself your priority. Yeah. And it's a lot of a taboo. And I know that I get embarrassed talking about it sometimes, but my artwork speaks for itself. And that's how I do it. And I hear a lot of women, that's me, and resonates. And they love seeing these pictures of women touching themselves, and it's like, I want to push the envelope with that a little bit because it excites me and it's exciting and it has to be talked about.
I think you should push the envelope. Actually, that's why I brought up the conversation or the topic on this, because I personally would not say that when I'm looking at, women who haven't gone through this experience speaking about it so boldly, so openly, and then once you go through the experience, it becomes taboo. I
Yeah,
just, for me, I'm like, I don't think that's fair. Like, you
that's
should
not fair.
definitely embrace it, and you're
Yeah.
leading that example.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of women that do that too, which I'm very Erica Hart. I mean, there's a lot of women that are very out there about their sexuality, and it's important to talk about after cancer. And maybe I don't talk about it verbally, but I do it with my artwork because it's not talked about with the doctors don't tell you the impact that's going to have on your relationship with whoever and on yourself. Because even
Mm.
when I'm alone by myself, the first things I did or do is go to my chest and breasts and fondle them or whatever. And then knowing that there's nothing there to sensation or sensually be, I'm so turned off in my head that the moment's over. And that's even hard for me to talk about because I feel like I'm saying, touching myself, I can't even do that. But I can't do that until I start loving this part of myself and putting that powerful part of me being without breasts is still beautiful. Like they are beautiful the way they are. And I've been told that. I mean, I've been told that by men. I've been told that by women. I've been told that my body's so beautiful as is. It's all a head game. It's still
Yeah.
up there. It's all a head game. But it was a head game before. And it's a head game now,
Hmm.
just a little tougher of a head game. So that's why I'm doing the artwork. So I do these images of these women pleasing themselves and I want their glint in their eye to be like, like give you a little like, oh yeah,
And
that
the
was
blush
nice.
of their cheeks.
Oh, the blush of the cheeks, absolutely.
When it comes to your like all the artwork, because I was actually very curious about this, and if you had any pieces that were truly, truly, truly meaningful to you, maybe your favorite pieces that really were at pivotal moments maybe in your life. What are those, and what did they mean to you? How did you draw them, and what did they mean to you?
One of the ones was my first, one of my first charcoals I did is, well, there's two actually charcoals that I really love. And what's interesting about the charcoals, because I look at them and I can feel everything I felt the day I drew them. I mean, right now I can get emotional about it. It was angry. It was because there was nothing. I wasn't trying to make an image, and the image just came out of me. So the fact that that happened was incredibly cathartic and unusual. Like I never experienced that. Like you draw a tree, so you draw a tree, make it a pretty tree, draw flowers. This was something I never did. This was, I went to art school. You had to do all kinds of assignments. This was not an assignment. This was just my whole entire body feeling came out. So one of the drawings was of me sitting with my eyes closed and I'm holding a chair and it's in I have breasts in it, but which is ironic that I have breasts, but they were glowing, if that makes any sense. Because I must have known this was going to happen to me later on in life or whatever. And then there was another one an Aries, so the ram head is often used in my artwork. So I had that symbolic image.
Mm.
So those two I loved. And then I did the ones I'm doing, the one I was talking about before, about these two images that I did, and I put them together. That was magic
Hmm.
like no other. So that's something, those are my few. I have pieces that I go to that I'm just like, that, yeah, like that's
Yeah.
it. And I do a lot of recent stuff it's recent work that I really like. I'm doing a lot of these medical kind of illustrations that everybody loves. So that makes me excited because they love these images. There's one that's very Joan of Arc looking, and she's so symbolic of getting through something, and that's symbolic to a lot of women that I've met, and they love that warrior woman kind of aspect, but with that beautiful feminine sexy eyes that can charm the shit out of you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you're the ones that you've made that I've seen had that where I started to really understand also what you went through like physically, personally, where you had that drawing and you had like masectomy. So like it was labeled, the woman
Yeah,
was labeled of all of
yeah,
the work that had been done
yes,
on her body, your body, and it was powerful. I mean, just to see it was like every single like basically every other inch of the body had
yeah,
something done.
yeah,
So that really starts to really hone in on like, wow, the amount, not only emotional and mental, but physical
yeah,
impact that it's had.
yeah.
And your drawings though, would you say, because I feel like and I was talking with Katie too, and
Mhm.
she had mentioned how she's created like two beautiful drawings that she just
Amazing.
released. Yes, I'm going to share them on our
Unbelievable.
platform. It was absolutely incredible. She said
Yeah.
a year's worth of work. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just that she loved,
Yep.
and
I
she was
talked to
just
her.
putting.
Yeah. A year ago today, I talked to her.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
just she's your biggest fan. And so we were speaking about your artwork as well, and she said it's developed. Like she's seen a development.
Yeah.
What can you say about maybe how it's been reflecting your process, your healing process? How was it before and how compared to how it is now?
In the beginning, I know with the charcoals, like I said, I was being so true to myself. And maybe it was alone, the fact that I was so alone doing it, like alone in the world at the time because I didn't know anybody. And so I was just speaking to myself. And now my artwork, I'm speaking to somebody else. So I'm trying to talk to somebody through my art. Whereas before I was just trying to convince myself, let my anger out, convince myself this is what it is, put it away. No one has to see it. The stuff I'm doing now, I want everyone to see. Like I want to become known for this. Like I'm decided that this is what I want. I want the brand Marianne Duquette Cuozzo to be my artwork and my journey. And I want to express this and I want to keep going. And I wanted it's advocacy. I never realized what it was until I was put into the place of doing it. And
Mm.
because it's there's a reason for this. And my son said it to me. It's my mission. So I know it all so well. Like it's not like I'm making a story up. And Katie
And
was and the fact that Katie took this on and she took my best friend's artwork, a photo of the first one with we lying on the grass, which was a day before my surgery. My best friend Mia took this picture of me in the grass. It was hysterical. The gardener landscapers came in at the same time. I'm topless on the ground, and she's on top of me. I mean, it was so funny. And she's like, "Not now," but not now. You gotta
currently in a
go.
photo shoot.
Can't explain it. Just go away. And it was hysterical. And we laughing, the breeze, and it was beautiful. And she did these series of photos for me of these my breasts, saying goodbye to them. And then when I had the other one that she did with me tied up was for the New York Times with Beatrice de did for me, and it was she made me scream my head off in the most beautiful way. She bound me for an
Yes.
hour and then she says, "Scream your ass off." And I'm in my house. She's got this big screen behind me and she's got all these cameras and stuff like that. And she just was like, we put on loud music and she just made me yell. And I just yelled and
And
then
what
broke out.
and what was the emotion and
Oh,
the significance of that photo of that experience for you?
it was, she had this image of binding me and then having me tear out of it. And it took a lot of takes to do because I was not comfortable doing that. I was so afraid to scream.
Mm.
And then when she finally caught the scream, she just was like, she caught it. She caught that moment. It was nothing fake about it. It was just like I was crying and yelling and that was like I got it, that's it, and she wanted it so desperately to be on the front page, and it was a little too erotic for that, and it was part of that because it was an erotic picture. It was meant to be erotic as well, like to be very
Mm-hmm.
bound and just take it out.
Yep.
And Katie just saw that and saw those two pictures, and she couldn't decide because she didn't normally her project that she's working on, the mother tongue, she didn't, I think she just wanted to use one and talk about it, but she couldn't choose between the two because they're both so powerful. One is so beautiful and one so emotional. So wow, I mean, I can't even tell you what a wonderful experience that was for in every single one of these women that I've dealt with. It's like I can't get over that I've had that opportunity over and over with these women. I'm very
Yeah.
blessed with that, very blessed.
I think it's great that you were able to capture those moments, and now you have something that you can keep for the rest of your life
Yeah,
as
100%.
a reminder.
Yeah.
And so your advocacy, you do advocacy through your art. You've identified that now this is your advocacy, but you do it also for cancer research. If we wanted to get involved and donate or provide support in some way, we can speak about if there's a place that specifically Mediviver, if you wanted to mention
Metaviber,
that.
I would
Uh,
definitely say Metaviber.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So because you work with them, you know that
Yeah.
they're credible. We can
Yes.
include the link for that information in the show
Thank you.
notes. And that
Yes.
way, anybody who wanted to read more about what they're doing, the research that
Yes.
they're doing, and donate can access it there.
And as far as for me, for the research that's going on in the cancer groups that I work with, the fashion show we were involved with was for metastatic breast cancer, which is people have to realize that you don't die from a lump in your breasts. You die from stage 4 cancer. When you have stage 4, it's metastatic, is in other parts of your body
Mm-hmm.
besides your breasts. There are people who live many, many 15, 20, many years with metastatic, but it is It's terminal. It's a terminal illness. They are forever going through treatment. Every day is treatment. I mean, there's women that go every month for the rest of their lives. They have to have this treatment. And right now, some of these women are not allowed to have the treatments because of what's going on. But one of the research that I'm really involved with is the Medivivor, which is was involved with the show, which I do a lot of work with them. And I sell a lot of artwork, and the money goes towards them or whatever I can do for them, because it's something that I truly believe in, because I know that this is scary. It's 1 in 8 women get breast cancer. 1 in 3 of those women are becoming metastatic. And it's just something that they don't have enough research for this. And they talked about it so much, and it just needs to be said. Metastatic has to be a word that is easy on people's mouths. Like, just say it and let's talk about it, and don't deny it, because that's when you're terminal.
I also wanted to talk about your lymphedema sleeves, because I think that's a great project that you worked on previously with lymphedivas.
Yes.
And so talk to us a little bit about that sleeve, what role it played in your life, and how it could help others that are also experiencing the same thing.
When I was diagnosed with lymphedema, it was something, and I talk about this. So I was just talking about this with my girlfriend, and I was like, she was like, that was the darkest time of your life. And I was like, it was. And it was so weird, because you would think it wouldn't be. I had the implants, and at this time I was bald. I remember going to a physical therapist. I had no range of motion. And the physical therapist was like, this is cancer related. This isn't something physical therapy. It's not bone or muscle. He couldn't give me much advice. And I was like, then I called my doctor, and they were like, you really have to go to a lymphatic therapist. And there was one out on Long Island that I went to, incredible woman. And what I didn't understand or realize what was going to happen was, because of all my lymph nodes that were taken out, there's 20 lymph nodes, and there's no way that the lymph system just it circulates all through your 700 lymph nodes. And in your arm, when it's cut off, it's kind of the beads, the lymph nodes are taken away. The pooling of the lymphatic fluid pools into my hands. My hands get really swollen and taut. And the scary thing about it is that there's no circulation, so that if I get a cut, I can get cellulitis very easily. It can become very serious. So I was going to the lymphatic therapist, and I thought she was just going to oh, she'll just massage it. And it felt so good when she did it. And she just pulled, and she pushed all the lymph fluid back up into my body. Felt so good. And she's like, oh, yes. And then she wrapped my arm with 30 minutes of wrapping tight. And I was like, okay, this feels great. So when do I come back to get this off? She goes, oh, we're going to be doing this every day for a month. You come here, you take it off. I do this massage, and I wrap you back up. And it was like the month of, I didn't speak to anybody. I didn't go out. I didn't do anything. I couldn't drive. I had a painting job. I couldn't even do the painting job. I couldn't do anything. And it was gross. It was dirty. I was so unhappy. I was bald, had no breasts. I had this thing on my arm. I was like, this was the darkest time. And then I found a podcast about lymphedivas. And then I realized that after these wrapping, I'd have to wear a sleeve every day. And I prayed for these sleeves. Oh my God, I waited for the mailman to come to get the sleeve. I finally got my sleeve, and the therapist put it on my arm, and ended up, I'm wearing a sleeve right now. I got in touch with them and showed them some artwork. And I said, you have no idea what you did for me. Yeah. Because it was one of the darkest times of my of going through this, because I was like, there's one more thing I have to deal with after this cancer treatment. And then when I found this sleeve and put it on, it was like the one thing that I had control over. So I had this beautiful sleeve that was funky and fun. It fit my style. And I started working with them, and I designed a sleeve 2 years ago, I want to say. And the 25% of it, the money goes to Medivivor. So it's called the Hope Sleeve. So it's like we worked with them, and it was great. And the sleeve I'm wearing today, I just designed. It just came out, and it's for the Tutu Project, which is another great project. It's a man, I don't know if you know about Bob Carey and his wife Linda, who Bob Carey he's a big size fella, and wears a pink tutu everywhere, and takes pictures of himself in Central Park on top of, Times Square. And all the money that he raises goes towards his project, which is for breast cancer. And it's a wonderful project as well. And so I designed the sleeve for that. And it has my birds, and it has a string with a heart on it. And then, and the money for that is going to the Tutu Project. So it's doing, Lymphedivas has done some great things. And I have another piece coming out too, probably in fall.
Incredible. Well, I'll place the information for these sleeves online as well, in case there is anyone listening that would like to purchase those. And other than that, that really ties up our conversation today. Unless there was something else that you wanted to bring up.
I'm happily and scared to even say this, but I'm going to be writing a book. I was asked to write a book, so with my artwork. So I'm working with somebody who saw me. He's a retired veteran, Major Scott Cussing, and he's found me through a photo in Instagram that went viral, and he was just inspired by my courage. He wrote me an email about 2 years ago, and now he's kicked me in the pants and said, "You could do it. Doing this. We're doing this together." So I'm excited about it, and that's the first time I talked about it. So it's like,
Oh, I love that.
so I hope
Yes, thank you so
yeah.
much.
So it's going to be
Thank you for sharing it.
we're taking all my journals and making a timeline, and then it's going to be chronological, but it's also going to be a story, and it's also going to be all my artwork. He's repping me, and it's exciting because it's something, coming from a man who's been experienced much in his life. Again, I have my son's approval because he's so excited, but it's also something that I feel like it's going to put all this stuff into,
It's gonna tie together.
Tie it together.
Wow.
Taking a step
I love
further.
that. I love you. I love seeing this journey. I told you when we connected, 2 months ago, I think it was. And
Yeah.
I was like, you are meant to put yourself out there and to
Thank
advocate
you.
and hey, look at these. You took it upon your own hands in your own, process of doing it.
Yeah.
And so super, super honored and grateful that you were able to hop on here today and do this interview to
Yay.
share your story with everybody. We got into so many topics, so many
Yeah.
important, areas that people needed to hear. So thank you so much for being on.
Sure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it and feel inspired and would like to be a part of the Relentless Minds community, you can join the movement for change on Instagram and Twitter. We would also love to know how your experience has been as a listener. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another powerful story. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.